We're just 4 weeks away from Halloween. That's right. People pretending to be somebody else going door to door for handouts, or as that's also called, running for president.
Well, they've been stumping on the sidelines for months, but tonight they are in the spotlight, the VP candidates, in their first and only face-off to show the American people how they measure up against their rivals. So, what do the voters need to hear? Here to weigh in, Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha and managing editor of the Washington Free Beacon, Aaron MacLean. Thank you so much. Nice hat, by the way, Chuck.
Thank you, Heather.
So let's start with what these two need to do. Chuck, I'll begin with you. We talked yesterday. The majority of people don't even know who they are, so they have to introduce themselves really to America.
You're welcome to Farmville, Virginia, or as I heard it called this weekend, the Thrilla in Vanilla. So you're not going to get a lot of spice with this. You're going to just try to hope not mess something up. That's their whole job here. Have you ever remembered the first opening act for whatever concert you've went to? These two guys' job today is to not do anything wrong, make sure there's no mistakes, make sure they highlight their policy positions, and they don't do anything wrong that we're not talking about tomorrow, because everybody's going to be tuned in next Monday to see the Trump-Hillary round 2 fight.
Aaron, what do you think?
I agree. I think they've gotten an additional incentive, both of them, to go hard after the top of the ticket on the other side. Hillary and Donald Trump constitute two of the most unpopular candidates and frontrunners or major party nominees in American history. So I think we're going to see a little bit of a race to the bottom here tonight. I'd be surprised if that doesn't happen. So
what about the issues, though, Aaron? Is there a specific issue that they should touch on for, their candidate to improve?
Absolutely. Well, look at it from Mike Pence's point of view. What he really needs to do tonight is attack on policy on those issues that are going to peel Democrat voters, or traditionally Democratic voters, off of the Clinton ticket in places like Pennsylvania and Ohio. For example, trade, immigration. He needs to go after voters who traditionally would go left, but are interested in Trump, but maybe turned off by some of his personal antics. Mike Pence is a good standard bearer for that kind of effort.
Aaron, or I'm sorry, Chuck, what do you think? Do you think, should he hit on the tax issue that everyone's been talking about?
There's no doubt when you run campaigns in a box like Democrats and Republicans do, they're going to go to that. But my advice to them would be show some more emotion. People are tired of this election. What I'm seeing running campaigns across the country is no enthusiasm really on either side of this thing. So they really need to try to motivate from a very vanilla perspective like we talked about in the beginning. Have some emotional. Tell a personal story. Try to connect to people, because we need more people participating.
Yeah, and we were just mentioning that with Pete Hegseth. When it comes to military members, both of them have sons in the military. So what should they do in terms of trying to pull over some of those veterans, Chuck?
I think they have to speak directly to where we are with our VA system, talk about veterans health care, and talk about the wars that we've been almost nonstop from the beginning, what's going on with ISIS. There's a lot of suburban voters out there that are going to sway this election in places like outside of Philadelphia and outside of Columbus, Ohio, who want to hear that. They want to make sure that we have a secure country, but also to Aaron's point, they want to hear about the trade issue as well. If they can combine national security and the trade and jobs issue, it will be a golden nugget for somebody.
And what about the independent voters, Aaron? We had one poll that showed 11% of voters are considered persuadable, and then when it comes to independent voters, Trump is leading 45% to 33%. So to pull over those independent voters that you were just mentioning, you mentioned those who may tend towards the Democratic side, but what about all of these independent voters?
Well, look, this is a problem for both folks on the stage tonight, because they both need to, as far as their bases are concerned, attack the top of the ticket on the other side. But I think that kind of thing, as Chuck alludes to, can really turn off folks in the center. For folks in the center, they need to focus on those issues that are splitting Americans right now. Again, from Pence's point of view, that's immigration, trade, things like that. Kaine may be less enthusiastic about talking about issues like that, but he's going to need to make a positive case for the traditional liberal Democratic view if he wants to pull some of those voters over to Clinton's ticket.
Well, we do have to pull some of those viewers over from a baseball game that I think is happening tonight as well. Thank you both for joining us. I appreciate it, and we'll have you back in just a little bit.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, they have been stumping on the sidelines for months, but tonight they are in the spotlight, the VP candidates, in their first and face off to show the American people how they measure up against their rival. So what do the voters need to hear? Here to weigh in, Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha and managing editor of the Washington Free Beacon, Aaron MacLean. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Aaron, I'm going to start with you this time. 90 minutes, no commercial breaks, just like the presidential debate. 84 million people tuned in for that debate. How many people do you think will tune in this time around, and what do they want to hear?
Substantially less than the debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I couldn't give you an exact number. What do they want to hear? I mean, I think a lot of folks, independents in particular, are looking to find a candidate that they can like. The fact is that the top of the tickets on both sides are historically unpopular. Mike Pence and Senator Kaine are both products of their party's establishment. They are relatively untainted by scandal and controversy compared to their frontrunners. So that's, I think, something that people are looking for and something that they should be focusing on, even as they also work to attack the top of the ticket on the other side. So it's a difficult course that they have to chart tonight.
It is. Speaking of horses and tracking a chart, you're all set, Chuck, with your cowboy hat. You're ready to go. Tim Kaine, from what we understand, will get the first question this evening. How do they walk that fine line that Aaron was talking about?
Well, Tim Kaine is from this state. We're in Farmville, Virginia, but Virginia's a lot like a lot of other battleground states. You have places like around D.C. and Northern Virginia where there's lots more Democrats who make up almost as much as out here in the rural areas in Farmville, and whoever can get their vote out, that's why it's 50-50, and so they're going to be straddling the line to try not to, A, not mess up in any way, but try to get across their points because they're the stalwarts of their party, and I would tell the American people, pay attention because this ticket tonight, you're going to see them again because either in 4 or 8 years they will be probably president.
And one of the problems that both of these candidates have had is pulling over millennial voters. Aaron, what can either one of these VP candidates do in order for their candidate to win over a little bit more of that demographic?
Well, for obvious reasons, millennials are very focused on the economy and on the job situation. In this respect, I mean, I think the advantage falls to Mike Pence, if only because he's the standard bearer for the populist who's still running, and Donald Trump. Mike Pence is traditionally more of a conservative, small government, social conservative, religious backing kind of a guy. But he's with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump carries that energy that on the left was carried by Bernie Sanders. But Sanders has gone, Trump has left. So when Pence talks about trade, when he talks about immigration and the immigration effect on the economy, I think he's got the wind behind his back, and I think Kaine is going to be on difficult terrain.
And Chuck, also independent voters, a big question mark this election season. What do they need to hear tonight to sway their support one way or the other? Chuck?
Well, independent voters historically have cared very much about like national security, also about the trade issue. But I also throw in this education. Most of these middle-class suburban voters have children that they plan on going to college, and college is becoming so unaffordable for an American family. And then if you've graduated college, back to your millennial question, you have this huge debt bubble. And that's why you saw Bernie do so good with that crew, because people are trying to figure out a way they can't afford to go to college. So if you play by the rules and you do the right thing and you go to school, you shouldn't be in debt the rest of your life.
But you can't just say free college for everybody and not explain how you're going to pay for it.
I would absolutely agree with that, but there's got to be some resolution because we can't continue to make college affordable just for some of us. There could be a reasonable explanation for how we get to that point. It may not be college for everybody, but there has to be a plan to help out these young people.
All right, Aaron and Chuck, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see what happens tonight. 9 p.m.
All right.
Eastern. All right.
There we go.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Clayton?
Thanks, Heather. Well, the time now is 25.